Would you all join me? All your hair gone?
No.
Very hard to talk without hair. Breathe in deep. We're talking about spirit today, and God breathed life into us, and then we breathe it out again, and ideally, when we breathe it out, we're saying, thank you for the gift of breath. Such a simple thing, but can you imagine being here without it? Welcome to church this morning. I thought I'd get a small sermon in there because we're back to sort of September, and the announcements are going to take a long time, and the celebrations are going to take a long time, so my sermons will get shorter and shorter. And I don't know if this is a plot, but I thought I'd get a little sermon in there. So welcome to worship this morning. If you are a guest, we are pleased to have you here. I see two persons here in the front sitting beside Barbara who are not normally here, and that's our daughter Karen Milligan and our son-in-law, Don Milligan. And we had a reception for them in the church yesterday, and we really appreciated the use of the space, and we especially appreciated the support that we had from some of you in a big, big way. So welcome here, Don and Karen. And there's Ann and the boy, Alex. Nice to have you back this morning. We've gathered together to spend about an hour of our life focused on the goodness that God has made available to us in the gospel of Jesus Christ. The thing that I'd like to do is I'm going to ask Titan if he'd come up here and just give you a little hand. We had made an agreement on this. And Titan, I wondered what I was doing as a minister, asking him to come up here and play with fire. But I said I'd be supervising him very carefully. So Titan is going to light the candle, but just before he does, I'd like you to know that, and some of you already know this will be sad for you to hear, but Mr. Ed Lang has passed. He passed on Friday in late afternoon. And so Mr. Lang, in some sense, has gone into the dark. We can't see him anymore. But the light of Christ which was in him and in us continues to live. Your moment.
That's the hardest thing about sermons, that lighting this candle.
And what's the lesson if you don't get it the first time? Excellent. Thank you, Titan, very, very much. So Christ is with us in this place, not just in that symbol, the candle, but in a particular way, that light of God that shines in our hearts. So today, let your light so shine that everybody and this is an S-P-E-C-I-A-L day, and therefore we are going to exercise our diaphragms and our breathing apparatus, and we're going to sing joyfully a couple of songs. And it'll start with come in, and sit down. And you can stand and you can be as exuberant as you like. plus exercise of your voices. Now, I am not sure how to proceed, but we're going to, the children, would you come forward? Because I think you know a song called The Fruits of the Spirit, don't you? You've sung it before. You want to come up here and join these singers? Okay, just wherever you're comfortable. And you're going to help us to learn this. Look what we got. We missed you. Just find a nice spot there. It's cozy. Back at the front. And Iris is going to play will you just play the melody for us? And listen to the melody and let it sink in. Hi, Leonovs. Look at you. It's nice to see you. Come on up. Don't be shy. Ah. What pretty dresses you have in the match. You want to take it like that? And you want to take that? Nice. Oh, good job. Okay, let's listen to the melody. You put yourself out there and you run the risk of maybe hitting a wrong note, but that's okay because we're a forgiving people and a growing people. Let's try it again, and once you start getting it, join in and we'll watch this song build. A cappella, just with the voice. Let's sing it like we mean it. For the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. For such there is no law. These young people here, these children in many ways are exactly why we gather together in the name of God, so that they would be blessed by the Spirit that is in us. As we carry these gifts forward, those gifts get transposed into their young minds and imaginations. And we are so very, very grateful for folks like Andrea and Bev and all those who helped them, because we think that the future belongs to these young people, and we want it to be the best future, a future filled with love, peace, faithfulness, joy. Join me. Love, peace, faithfulness, joy, goodness, gentleness, patience, self-control, kindness. These are the things we want to cultivate in our spiritual life. Let's sing, I've got Peace Like a River. Do you folks know this song? Just join in, and on the third verse, you can follow and head to a learning time. I think you all know this song, right? Sing it like you mean it. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean, I've that we read in church on Sunday morning are letters that are carved onto a page. Those letters were inspired in the hearts of human beings, just like us, by the Holy Spirit of God. And they were inspired to write these words with a purpose in view. And the purpose in view is expressed well in the Galatians text, which speaks about the fruits of the Spirit, and it lists all of the virtues that make human being worth living. And we also heard in the scriptures that there is another point of view, which is not based in what the Spirit cultivates in our experience, but what the world cultivates in our experience. And I suspect intuitively that if anyone in this room had a choice between the fruits of the Spirit and the fruits of this world, the response would be, I want the fruits of the Spirit. Even so, it's obvious that most of us are stuck in the way of the world. And I titled my talk this morning, Motive for Change, and that's what I'd like to inspire in you. Perhaps you're already well on the way. You're already well committed to doing everything in your power to make the world a better place. Not just for you and yours, but for the others. And in a particular way today, I have in my mind a little lyric from Cat Stevens. I know we've come a long way. We're changing from day to day. But tell me, where do the children play? My primary incentive, my primary encouragement to you is to imagine how your resources, your time, your energy, your dream for the future can work together to be sure that by the 7th generation, as the Cree folk like to say, this world is a place that is filled with the fruits of the Spirit. Now, this sounds interesting at an intellectual level. I have a little example from my life's experience of many years ago. I had a friend, Robert. And one spring in St. Boniface, in part of Winnipeg, Robert started a little urban garden. I was living down by Sundown at the time, and I had a big 40 acres, and I started a little garden too. And both of us went through the growing season, and once in a while we'd sit for a tea, and I'd notice what he had done, and he'd notice what I had done, and we wouldn't say too much about it. He was very gracious. By the end of the summer, harvest time, Robert's garden had beans this big, cucumbers this big, tomatoes this big. He had everything. It was just teeming with good food for human beings. If you would have come to my garden, what you would have seen is a plot about the size of this, thick with weeds. But I was kind of happy with it because there was a wildflower there and a wildflower there. And I thought, oh, look at those beautiful wildflowers. But the lesson that I learned from this is that if you want to grow healthy food for your table, for your community meals, to share with others, you have to work at it. Robert was in his garden every day with a hoe, with a spade, with a fork. Robert was there pruning and plucking and watching. I was playing my guitar and singing songs and doing the other kinds of things that young men like to do. And it's obvious that the only way we will ever harvest the fruits of the Spirit is if we invest our energy in cultivating them. This is a daily practice, and every one of you will acknowledge that you have lots of opportunity every day to practice patience. And this is a little side journey, but in the epistle of Peter, Peter writes about the way of holiness. And guess what's the first step along the way of holiness? Patience. And once you've made patience perfect, what do you think is the next step? Perseverance. So you got to be patient, and you got to work at it, and you got to wait for the results. And when you've got patience, then you've got to keep persevering. You've got to keep pushing. Because the world doesn't want you to be joyful. The world doesn't want you to be gentle. The world doesn't want you to be kind. The world doesn't want you to be faithful. The world wants you to abandon these things. Stop cultivating them. The world wants you to go out and get pleasure for yourself. And that's what the Galatians text is talking about. Don't look at vanity, things that sort of puff up your sense of worth and pride. Look at things that matter. And our modern civilization is at the point of collapse because we have neglected to cultivate the spiritual gifts. And we have been diverted into seeking pleasures in the realm of things that cannot last. And that's okay. If you want to be that kind of person, that's fine. Jesus does not come into the world to judge the world, but to save it, to set it free from its addictions, its diversions, its distractions, its compromises. And Jesus wants to set the world free for a reason. And that reason is well illustrated in the text where we saw people bringing children to Jesus. And the disciples who didn't get it yet, they didn't get it till after the resurrection when they had their encounter with the risen Christ. The disciples said, no, this is not for kids. And Jesus said, fellas, stand back. Let the kids come to me. And why would he do that? Well, inside of Jesus was the Spirit of God, and the Spirit of God was making manifest all the fruits of that Spirit. And Jesus knew that if a child could just come into his arms, that Spirit would bless the child. If Jesus could put his hand on the child's head, that would bless the child. If Jesus could say a kind word, that would bless the child. And so we, as followers of Jesus, should cultivate the relationships we have with these young people. And not just cultivate it by being kind to them, by being patient with them, by being forgiving of them, because they don't know all the rules yet. But there's another way where your relationship with these children is so important. And once you get this, everything else gets a lot easier. You see, to the degree that you grow a garden filled with the fruits of the Spirit, all you have to do is be near the child, and your Spirit will bless the child. You may not be noticing this, but when kids are in a room with adults, they're doing whatever they're doing, but there's a part of them that is listening and watching. I'll give you a small example. I was in a conversation with a group of people, and we were talking about all kinds of things, and the pastor of the church said, if I had a gun, I'd shoot that guy. I'm so tired of what he's doing. And on the floor was his little daughter playing. And I had to stop the meeting. I had to say, hold it. As an adult, when you say, I'd like to get a gun and shoot that person, what is your child learning? You see, the children learn. When we are, three of us in a corner of the church, talking about how annoyed we are that the carpets are the way they are, or we're annoyed about this, or we're annoyed about that, or we're frustrated with the way somebody is behaving, and we're tired of doing it this way, the children are listening, and you're not feeding them healthy food. You see, you're feeding them contaminated food. You're feeding them the food of your own frustration. You're feeding them the food of your own impatience, your own lack of love. Because love covers a multitude of sins. And I'm not saying we shouldn't be honest and truthful and open with one another. But it's a lot better to go when there's a child listening and say, Bob, I wasn't quite sure what you were up to in church on Sunday morning. Can we get a cup of coffee and talk about that? Now the child is learning that adults negotiate resolutions and don't try always just to get their own way. So I'd like to say to you that we are in a critical moment of human history, and we grew up learning skills that made it possible for us to generate a good life. But the children grew up in a different world, and that world was mainly focused on getting hold of their imaginations and exploiting them for the profits of the multinational corporations. How on earth is it possible in a democracy with free people, responsible people, people who get to choose leaders, that we should have so much that is advertised to the kids. And let's just take sugar as an example. How much disease hasn't been brought into our experience? Barbara mentioned about the First Nations and diabetes, how they didn't have it before we got here. So I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you to invest your life in the future. Each one of us is approaching the horizon of our life where we will step out of the picture. We will go on to the great beyond, where we will discover whether what we believed was true or not. And hopefully we will find it to be not only true, but much more wonderful than we ever imagined. But when we leave, those children will have to live their lives. Let's give them the gift of patience by our example. Let's give them the gift of love by our example. Let's give them the gift of love by our forgiveness. Let's exercise the fruits of the Spirit so that our children may absorb the way of God and in this way be saved from the way of the world. It's an important time in the history of the world, and we're either going to be motivated to change or we're going to be motivated to just hang on until we're free of it. I hope you will decide to change. Get involved. Don't be a consumer. Be a citizen. That's what God is looking for. And if you're a good citizen here, you'll have no trouble with it. Ready? Love is something, give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something, you give it away, you end up having more. It's just one magic penny, hold it tight and you won't have any. Lend it, spend it, you'll have so many. They're all over the floor. Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. Grace and peace be with you. Blessings on the food we're going to eat. Blessings on the fellowship we're going to share. I am going to say amen, and you folks chat with one another as you make your way to the mess hall.